Hey, yo, what's good? Welcome to my Roberto Duran week, where I pay tribute to the great Roberto Duran. Since it was his 64th birthday on Tuesday, I figured that a whole week was necessary or appropriate to pay homage for his career. This is not my original idea. This is inspired by the Fight City, and I will put their great article on this fight in the description as well. So you got that. Today we'll be talking about Duran's greatest fight and his greatest victory. Of course, it was on June 20th, 1980 against the great Sugar Ray Leonard. The Brawl in Montreal, it was dubbed. And a little bit of background. Duran was 71-1, so he had already had a full career and lightweight, and was already being considered the greatest lightweight of all time. So he was already a legend, a surefire Hall of Famer. Sugar Ray Leonard was the media darling, the gold medalist in 1976. He actually won it in Montreal, which was part of the reason why they did the fight there in the first place, because they knew that if they did the fight like in New York or in LA, the Latino people were gonna support Roberto Duran. So they're like, okay, Sugar Ray Leonard has a bit of a history in Montreal, so we're gonna do the fight there. Since he won the gold medal, he probably has more support. He'll probably have more support than Roberto Duran. Wrong and wrong. As we know, Canadians, they go for whatever they want. As the wrestling fans know, that Canadians usually cheer for the bad guy or the guy that isn't usually cheered, because they go by their own, they do what they want. So, in the introductions, when they introduced Sugar Ray Leonard, he was getting booed. So those plans failed. And also, Duran had gotten into Leonard's head. You know this from his book. If you read his book, it's a good book. It's called The Big Fight, Sugar Ray Leonard's autobiography. He said that Duran's tactics and in the pre-fight build-up got to him. Duran was just such a macho guy and would just talk so much. And he wouldn't just talk, oh, I'm gonna kick your ass and all this. He would be like, fuck you, I'll fuck your wife, and suck my dick. He say all this stuff. In the weigh-in, Leonard blew a kiss to Duran, and Duran's like pointed at his groin, and he's like, suck my dick, and all this stuff had gotten to Leonard. It had gotten in his head, and he says in his book that he looked in the mirror before the fight, and he didn't see a man that was confident. He didn't feel like he was gonna win. And maybe that showed a little bit in the fight, but it was mostly because Roberto Duran fought a great fight. Beautiful fight. And I forgot what a great fight this was. And this is when super fights meant something, man. Not to hate on the recent super fight. I had fun on the build-up and watching the fight, but man, it doesn't compare. You wonder why people say, oh, fights back in the day were much better. And you're like, show me. All you gotta do is watch this fight, man. These guys were making millions of dollars. They broke records. They broke records on the gate and how much they were getting paid. They were getting paid millions of dollars. And these guys weren't even heavyweights. This was like the first non-heavyweight fight that was a mega fight of that era. This ushered in a new era of the lighter weights, like Marvin Hagler, Duran, Leonard, Alexis Arguello. This ushered in that fight of the new era of these guys having mega fights of the Fab Four. This was the first fight within the Fab Four. Then came, of course, the rematch. Of course, Leonard Hearns. Then you got Duran Hearns. Then you got Hagler Hearns. Then you got Leonard Hagler. So this was the first fight that happened. But coming into the fight, the first round, you see Leonard coming in flat-footed. You're like, what? And second round, that's when that famous left hook that Duran hits that wobbles Leonard, that puts him in shaky legs, spaghetti legs. You're like, damn, already the second round and he's already getting buckled. So he buckled him the second round, he buckled him the third round, and he buckled him the fourth round. He was hurting him, he was catching him, he was backing him up. Duran was fighting a beautiful fight. But like Leonard says in his book, if Duran's boxing ability is underrated, Sugar Ray Leonard's grittiness is underrated, and his ability to fight and brawl is underrated too, because he started landing some good shots, some right hooks, some shots to the body, you know, throwing his Sugar Ray Leonard combinations, winning rounds. But he would do that in the middle of the rounds and throw hard punches to Roberto Duran, man. These guys fought their heart out. You don't get this today anymore, man. You just don't. You just don't. Maybe because I'm a romantic from back in... I'm not from back in the day, but I watched these fights and I'm like, man, we should get fights like this again. And you know why this fight was such a great fight? Because you have two guys in their absolute prime fighting each other. Two all-time greats. You got Duran with only one loss and an undefeated gold medalist, future superstar in the making of Sugar Ray Leonard. That's why this was such a great fight, man. And they both went balls out. Imagine if they had fought until 1989 in their third fight. This fight would not be nearly as great, and it would not mean as much. So Leonard was catching up in the middle rounds, but then you got Duran catching him with bigger shots, just like in rounds 8 and 9, that would back him up. And these were close, great rounds. So this isn't just an homage to Duran. This is an homage to his victory, yes, but also Sugar Ray Leonard's performance, because they kept saying, I'm surprised by Sugar Ray Leonard's toughness, because he had never been tested like this. He had never been hurt before like this, or challenged, I guess. But he came back and he fought Duran, and he was beating him at his own game at times, but he was no match at Duran's game. You can't like brawl with a brawler. And Duran was not just a brawler. He was mixing in jabs. He was timing his shots. His right hand, that left hook, man, landed throughout the fight. That left hook was beautiful. And you would see Sugar Ray Leonard's head go back, you know, and you're like, damn. I was like, damn, how does this guy take these shots? How is he taking such a great shot? But, you know, he's an all-time great, had never been knocked out. His grittiness is definitely underrated. 7, 8, 9, 10, you got Duran landing the bigger shots, but Leonard trying to catch up. But he kept backing up. He kept tying up to Duran. Throughout the fight, he was tying up to Duran because he knew Duran could do some damage. I was like, man, why is Sugar Ray clinching so much? He was clinching throughout the whole fight. But that's because Duran's constant pressure, his body shots, those shots, man. I don't know how Sugar Ray Leonard was taking these shots, but the same goes to Duran. He was taking some big, solid shots from an all-time great, and he was already being dubbed an all-time great. He was being dubbed as the heir to Muhammad Ali's throne, you know? Ali said, "You're a bad man." But he was already being dubbed that. And Duran had been in the shadows of Muhammad Ali for all of the 70s. He was in the shadows because because Muhammad Ali was still fighting throughout. You got Rumble in the Jungle, you got Thrilla in Manila, you got his fights with Kenny Norton, with Larry Holmes. I think that fight was that was in the 70s. Leon Spinks. So he was in the shadows of Muhammad Ali throughout the 70s. So he was never put the attention was never put on him. He was never the guy, the mega star. And once Muhammad Ali retired, it was Duran's chance to do that. It was Duran's chance to be the superstar of the game, the mega star, the guy. But then came Sugar Ray Leonard, tried to steal that spotlight. You got Sugar, he was a media darling, a gold medalist, undefeated through flashy combinations. He was handsome. He had a fro. People in the households loved him. White people loved him. He got that smile. That was back in the day when amateur fights were without headgear, so you could see their faces. And moms and parents would be like, I want to see that Sugar Ray kid fight, because they could see his face and they knew how he looked. So he was the heir apparent, not Duran, to Ali's throne. Even though Roberto Duran had put in that work throughout the 70s, had knocked out 55 of his 72 opponents, had captured the undisputed lightweight champion of the world, destroyed most of his opponents, had gone through a reign of terror. So I think in that sense, Duran was a little jealous. So that's why he fought with the ferocity that he fought. Not that he didn't usually fight like that, but after the fight, in the last round, you have Duran messing around, just dodging his shots, and this is that famous moment, right, when he taps his chin with his right glove, and then he throws the left jab at Leonard, because he was upset. He didn't like this guy. That's why he told him all this stuff at the weigh-in and the pre-fight build-up. That's why he had this hatred towards him, because he was taking his spot. And after the fight, you have Duran raising his hand in victory. And also, I think Sugar Ray Leonard maybe he did have his hands up in victory, maybe trying to embrace Duran, but Duran just pushed him away. You could see the macho-ness, the ferocity, and Duran carried himself throughout. You knew it wasn't an act. Then he yelled something he was yelling at the crowd, pointing at his groin, man. Like, you ain't man enough for this. Get this. Man, this is the guy that Mike Tyson looked up to, man. This is Mike Tyson's favorite fighter because of that. Because of the antics he did and the way he acted outside of the ring. You knew it was real. You know it was puro Panama. You knew it was that. And that's when you have him push him, and you have it when the winner was announced, it was Roberto Duran, because he outpunched, and he hurt Sugar Ray Leonard several times in the fight, and he did deserve the victory. In the post-fight interview, he was like, Sugar Ray Leonard was not man enough. I'm the better man. I'm the better fighter. I'm the better boxer. And that's true. And he's like, I clowned him the last round to know that I could outbox him too, and that the fight was already won. And I agree, the fight was already won in my scorecards, but I forgot how close this fight was and how great this fight was. These fights right here, they proved who's the better man. Not just who's the better boxer that night, not just who's gonna win the fight, but who's the better man. Duran was the better man that night in Montreal, June 20th, 1980. He was the better man because he outfought Leonard. He beat him up. At times, he was beating him up. He hurt him. He was pushing him forward against the ropes. Sugar Ray Leonard clinched for a long time throughout the fight. He was clinched against Duran. He was against the ropes. So who was the better man? It was Duran. These are the kind of fights that prove it. Not just circling around a guy, through 12 rounds. That doesn't. It proves that you win, but it doesn't prove, like I said, who's the better man, who got the bigger balls. That's the essence. I think that's the essence of the fight game, and no one personified that like the great Roberto Duran. That's why the Fight City and myself are paying a tribute to this guy, because everything we love in boxing was personified on Roberto Duran. Not to take anything away from Sugar Ray Leonard, who was presented as the pretty boy, but he fought his heart out as well in this fight. He fought, man. He proved that pretty boys could be tough too. And you see that later with like Oscar De La Hoya, But yeah, great fight. The Duran's finest performance, his magnum opus, I think that's what they call someone's greatest performance. This was Duran's magnus opus. His greatest performance, his greatest victory, his shining moment. At least for that moment, he was the biggest star since Muhammad Ali. He was Muhammad Ali's heir apparent in that night, because this fight was like the two best pound for pound fighters at that time, before pound for pound was invented. So Duran stood here, both hands up in the air, saying, I'm the best pound for pound fighter. I'm the biggest superstar in the world today. At least for that one night, man. But it's a shame that what happened this next fight. But at least for this one night, he had that shining moment. And we will never forget that. We will never forget that you were the first man to beat Sugar Ray Leonard in his prime, and the only man to beat Sugar Ray Leonard in his prime. No one else could beat him, but the great Roberto Duran was the foil. Thanks for watching, everybody. Shout outs to the Fight City once again for doing this great series. And look out for my next videos on this week. I will make another one today. So look out for that. And rate, comment, and don't forget to subscribe. Peace.